Hi, Tarana.
She's got Ashwin's login. So if somebody could reveal
I
that
will
for us.
just do that. Don't worry.
Yeah,
Sadhubi's
it
Zoom
is
does
Ashwin
not
Chadda.
like
Yeah.
me. Sadhubi's Zoom does not like me.
Okay,
Hey,
I think we
Tarana.
will. I think we will just start the session now, just to be on time and to stick to the timelines. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sameer Saran. I'm the managing partner at India Sotheby's International Realty. We welcome you to the fourth and final webinar in the Global Luxury Real Estate Conclave series titled "The Purpose of Life: Repurposing of Our Lives and Spaces." By way of background, India Sotheby's International Realty set up in 2014 in India and has a presence across 3 states, which is Maharashtra, Delhi NCR, and West Bengal, as well as Colombo in Sri Lanka and the Maldives. Our team comprises of over 50 professionals from diverse backgrounds such as financial services, hospitality, luxury, and of course, real estate, bringing together decades of transaction advisory experience. Our global footprint is actually across 72 countries with 1,000 offices and 23,000 sales associates on the ground. And we clocked a gross annual sale of $150 billion last year. Our brand heritage, derived from Sotheby's, the auction house, our global network and footprint, and our PropTech marketing platform has uniquely positioned us as the largest luxury residential real estate advisor worldwide. I would like to take this opportunity to introduce you to my colleagues and the leadership team who form part of India Sotheby's International Realty. So I'm just going to ask you all to wave in turn. So Amit Goyal, our CEO. Hello. Ashwin Chadda, our president. Sudarshan Sharma, our executive director who heads up our Mumbai office. Mrs. Sabah Ali, director partnerships and strategic alliances. Mr. Yatindra Suparna, our director sales. And of course, last but not least, Mr. Akash Puri, our director international. To get started on this session, I had a few thoughts that I just wanted to share, and then I will hand you over into the capable hands of Mrs. Tarana Soni. So from the earliest stages of the pandemic, the luxury industry has been highly attuned to the spread of coronavirus and its implications for the sector as a whole. Luxury brand owners felt the first rumblings of the storm of COVID-19 when it spread through China. The country whose citizens accounted for 90% of global luxury market growth in 2019. When the virus reached Italy, where many brands are headquartered and have critical key suppliers, they face the additional challenge of operating as and where possible amid a national lockdown also. In less than weeks, the pandemic has reordered virtually every industry in the world, but few more rapidly so than real estate. Now, hundreds of millions of people across the world have realized the importance of home. The old adage, home sweet home. Today, it is seen as a safe haven. Today, it is a de facto school. Today, it is an impromptu office or a gym. The spaces that we live in, and more importantly, what we demand from them, stand to look profoundly different in the post-coronavirus world. It gives me great pleasure to introduce you to our moderator for this particular webinar, Mrs. Tarana Soni. Tarana is the current chairperson for the Confederation of Indian Industry CII Task Force for Art and Culture and has been a member of the CII National Council since 2018. She is a governing body member of the NGO Khushi and an advisory board member of the Foundation of Indian Contemporary Art, FICA. Tarana is also a member of the International Council and South Asian Acquisitions Committee of the Tate Modern Museum in London and strategic advisor South Asia Art Tactic. During her tenure as chairperson for CII, she has co-organized the Indian Pavilion along with the Ministry of Culture, Government of India for the Venice Biennale in 2019. Tarana both lives and works in New Delhi, and now I hand you over into her capable hands as the moderator for this session. Thank you, Tarana.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you so much, Sotheby's Realty India, and all the viewers, and of course, our esteemed panelists for joining us today. I think the final session of the conclave sounds very, very exciting. And I commend the Sotheby's team for pulling together leaders from their fields to speak about luxury. Our theme for today is what is our purpose of life as redefined by the pandemic? How does luxury fit into the new normal, and how do we plan to go forward? The pandemic has created a drastic change in the perception and consumption of luxury and what it means today. While global luxury brands may see a 30% decline after 3 decades of unprecedented global growth, the only item that remains a true luxury within this pandemic world is the home. Now, since we have all attended multiple webinars by now, I'm going to keep the housekeeping short. The plan is that we will engage with our panelists for about 45 minutes, followed by 15 minutes of Q&A, where we'll be delighted to accept questions from the audience. Before anything else though, may I go directly to the panelists and ask them to introduce themselves. Our first panelist for today is Mr. Sandeep Khosla, fashion designer. Sandeep, over to you.
Hi, I'm Sandeep Khosla, one part of Abujani Sandeep Khosla. Welcome you all. Enjoy. I hope you have a good time today.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Ms. Shruti Shivulal, CEO and Director, Tamara Leisure Experiences Private Limited. Hi, Shruti, over to you.
Hi, Tarana. Thanks for having me. Like you said, my name is Shruti. I run an organization called Tamara Leisure Experiences, and we run resorts and hotels around India and own in Germany as well. Thanks so much for having me.
Our next panelist is Mrs. Manjari Sehare Sutun, Lead Specialist and Head of Sales, Modern Contemporary South Asian Art, Sotheby's Auction, New York. Hi, Manjari.
Hi, Tarana. Thank you all for having me. Thank you, SIR. I'm looking forward to this. I head sales for Modern and Contemporary Indian and South Asian Art for Sotheby's, and I'm based in New York. Looking forward to this.
The next panelist on this round is Mr. Sanjay Kapoor, Founder and President, Genesis Luxury Fashion Private Limited. Over to you, Sanjay.
Hi, Tarana. Thanks for having me on this. My name is Sanjay Kapoor. I founded Genesis Luxury a few years ago, which has brought a host of luxury brands to India. We're now part of the Reliance Brands larger ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you. Our fifth panelist is Mr. Sanjoy Roy, Managing Director of Teamwork Arts. Hi, Sanjay. You're on mute.
Hi, Tarana. Lovely to be here, and thank you, Sotheby's, for having us all come together on this platform and seeing so many friends who one doesn't necessarily see all the time, even if it's on Zoom. I'm part of an organization called Teamwork. Pre-COVID, we ran about 33 annual festivals across the world, including the Jaipur Literature Festival. I also, like Tarana, look after the creative industries segment in FICCI, and I am a trustee, founding trustee of Salam Balak Trust, where we work with street and working children.
So then you must be very active, Sanjoy, and we're going to come back to all the things that you've done in the last 3 months. Our final panelist for today is Ms. Anastasia Yanni, Partner and CEO, Cyprus Sotheby's International Realty. Thank you for joining us, Anastasia. Over to you.
Hi, everyone. My big pleasure to be here. I'm representing international part of the Sotheby's family, and I'm bringing a little bit of Mediterranean sun and global mobility to the panel.
Thank you very, very much for that. As I had mentioned before, that we have leaders from several fields of luxury on the webinar today. And therefore, I thought the question to be asked really of all of you is, how do you define luxury? What to you is luxury? And how is this definition changing in the world of today and what has happened in 3 months from now? May I ask Sandeep for you to start?
Okay. I think luxury is going to pretty much remain luxury. Nothing going to change in it. We as Indians are very resilient as people. So we have a wonderful power to bounce back from time to time to time. Nothing can hold us down for long enough. So at the moment, so I really think nothing going to change. We're all going to be the same. because luxury is about fabulosity. It's about detail. It's about craft. For me, at least for me. So I think it still remains the same for me. And I suppose to our audience, it'll mean all the same things. I don't think if you're wearing a wonderful cotton luxurious shirt, you're going to continue to wear it. And if you're wearing a wonderful silk shirt with embroidery, you're going to continue to, because you have enough in your wardrobe. You may not be buying them today. You may hold back on buying 25 more new ones, or even one new one for maybe 6 months to 8 months. But that doesn't mean that my standard is going to change of luxury, or I'm going to rethink luxury.
Thank you, Sandeep. I think the nicest things that you said is same. I think we all want the word same right now. We want to hold on to the familiar and say that, you know, the same old things matter. But on the other hand, on the other side of the spectrum, Sanjay, what do you think? You know, take care of so many luxury brands, and how do you think the changing world defines luxury?
You know, I think to describe luxury is actually very hard. It varies from person to person. Honestly, for an 80-year-old grandparent, spending time with the grandkids is probably luxury. In its most traditional form, luxury is about research, experiences, craftsmanship, like Sandeep mentioned, right? But I think with this whole COVID situation, one movement that I've seen across people, across countries, has been wellness, actually. Wellness is the new health. People are being more proactive rather than reactive about it. Of course, the original version of luxury stays pretty much as Sandeep said, but I think there's a huge emphasis on wellness, health, and all that other good stuff around it right now with the current environment.
Thanks, Sanjay. Wellness then takes us to, I suppose, what we feel makes us well physically and also emotionally. And at this point, I think in the hot summer months, we all think of travel. So I want to go to Shruti next and ask what luxury means to her, since she is from the travel industry.
So luxury to me in experience, because we are service providers, what we think luxury is, what we believe luxury is really in things like personalization, curation. It is finding a guest's needs before they even know that they have those needs, right? It's about prediction. It's about understanding people, what touches their heart, what feels to them, right? What is that? And how do you connect emotionally to a guest? That is what we think luxury really is. And I think in that sense, I do think, to Sandeep's point, that a lot of this will remain the same. I think, you know, things which people connect to, those emotions, those sort of, you know, this feeling of being out in nature and coming, you know, having that sense of inner peace. I think that is a luxury which will absolutely be treasured now going forward. And again, and to Sanjay's point as well, I think, you know, we are seeing in the travel industry a huge focus towards wellness and well-being, and not just physical well-being, but also mental well-being. There's certainly more of a focus on things like Ayurveda, on naturopathy, you know, a lot more, we're seeing a lot more interest in those things. And I think that the evolution of the hospitality industry is such that, you know, we're wanting to bring the same sort of elements of luxury back to everyone, but at the same time, there is this added element of safety and hygiene that we're really sort of in the process of taking care of. You know, I think that attention to detail is now really becoming a part of the story. And I think brands in the hospitality industry are trying to really build trust with the guests to ensure that they can come to us and really forget about sort of everything else that's going on in the world. We actually opened up our one of our resort properties last week, and this is exactly the feedback that we got. You know, people are coming and wanting to have these luxurious experiences and really just forget that all of this is happening outside. So that idea of sameness that you were talking about, I mean, I think that's really something that we are also seeing.
Thank you, Shruti. But talking from one side, the resort, and the other side, a home that may feel like a resort, how do you want to come in on this question, Anastasia?
I think here I will go with a double approach, because we do see the changes in the approach of people to the luxury. Even though luxury itself, it will not change, like all the panelists already mentioned. But I think that now we also have and witness the luxury of freedom and the luxury of global mobility. When, you know, I think no one have ever expected that the whole world can close in one day. I don't think, like, none of us have ever witnessed that the countries closed down. And we, as part in Cyprus, we witnessed the drive for this new freedom, for new mobility. When you have instrument, if you can afford it, you have instrument to take your family and fly to the safer place. This is the luxury. If you can take your family to the safer place with better climate, with better health care, this is the true luxury at the moment. And of course, the home, like, look, I think the new luxury now, I think, like I was telling to my colleagues from India office, that we actually enjoyed to a certain degree a lockdown because we had a luxury to work from home. So we all understood how important it is to have this luxury. We had a luxury to play with the children in the garden, being safe without sirens. So you see, I think that this pandemic situation showed us lots of other new aspects of the world luxury in the local sense, in the personal sense, connected, like Sanjay said, to well-being, but also to the global sense.
Thank you. I agree with you when you say that, but you know, so many different aspects make luxury. One is, of course, within the house, and the other is also the place that you choose to call home, particularly if it is a second home. Which takes me to Sanjoy. When we speak about taking somebody to a safe place and what that place means to us, I think the culture of that place or that city also plays a huge role in defining what luxury is. So, Sanjoy, what would you say? How does culture play a role?
Rana, to begin with, you know, just having an office to go to today is a luxury that a lot of people perhaps don't have anymore. Having the luxury of going to a theater, which we've forgotten, that's uber luxury, or to a concert. And the very sense of time, I don't know about all of you, but I find today time has become a luxury more so than ever. Now that you're stuck at home or working from home on Zoom, your time gets taken up every hour on the hour, pretty much from 10 in the morning to 10 at night. So time has become luxury. And in all of that, I think the one thing that we keep forgetting, where we need to concentrate, pretty much like what Sanjay said and Shruti said and almost everybody said, is luxury today is luxury of love, of empathy, of well-being, of being able to just go out with 2 people or 3 people who you know and love and care for, and go beyond or grow beyond our virtual world, just to be together, to give somebody a hug. Today is a luxury, sometimes unaffordable.
Absolutely. And while one is doing that in the safety of their home, I think what comes inside the house makes a lot of difference as well, which takes me to Manjari, because you are in the wonderful world of putting wonderful things around us in our home. So Manjari, how do you define luxury?
For me, you know, I agree with Sandeep and Sanjay. I think if ever there was a time that the phrase health is wealth was of importance, has anything to say for itself, this is its time. I think it's a time of introspection. People are consciously thinking about what's important to them, what their loved ones, in terms of tangibles. They're thinking about how to celebrate things around them, the things that we took for granted, like Sanjoy said, like just like a simple hug from a person. In terms of, I work in the art industry. I'm getting calls from clients who bought a work 5 years ago. They're now finally sitting down at home and they look at the work and they're telling me, I'm seeing something new every day in this painting, you know? And for me personally, luxury is comfort, you know? It's safety. And I think those questions have become so important now in these times. And also, I also think all of this time, because it's a time of introspection and contemplation, because sort of the world has stopped, I think people are also thinking about a sort of a more responsible consumption of things, you know, of ethics. And I think that is an important part as well.
So I think what I'm hearing from everybody is that there is a heightened environmental and a social consciousness, along with the fact that while you are doing that, you want to do it in the best way possible, which is surrounding yourself with the things that either you are used to or what you define as the best. So do you think that luxury brands will imbibe a heightened environmental and social consciousness? And will the consumer concern about sustainability and social issues will continue, consolidating the importance of both these elements and their governance? Shruti, what do you think about that?
So, yeah, I mean, so for us, actually, sustainability and responsible hospitality has been really at the core of our business. It's never been sort of separated from it as such. And so everything that we've done, you know, the whole life cycle from the where we conceptualize a property all the way to, you know, design to construction to creation to operation, we consider this idea of sustainability within it. I think going forward, you know, we've always seen that actually a lot of our guests have a deep appreciation for sustainability and sort of the way in which we do our business, you know, and even if you go beyond sustainability of, you know, the environment, if you talk about even the way that we work with the local communities and the locations in which we exist, you know, those, you know, people, our guests have always seemed to have a good appreciation for it. But right now the sentiment is yes. I think guests will be more selective about the places and the companies that they support, the brands that they support going forward, because we have such a vision now of what can happen, right? To what Anastasia said, like we've never seen this sort of a global lockdown. We've never been in a situation where everyone on the planet is affected, right? So I think there is this greater consciousness that all of us have sort of experienced now that, hey, listen, we're not in this alone. We are by no means isolated. We have a responsibility that is not just to ourselves, our families, our city, but really to sort of the greater community of, you know, of the world. And so I do think that there is sort of a shift in mindset of people being far more socially conscious. And I think that will lead to people choosing brands, or at least, you know, starting to explore brands if they had it earlier, that have have sort of this sort of perspective or this sort of focus towards responsibility, you know, sustainability and so on and so forth.
Sanjay, what do you think? I mean, you know, talking about brands that you represent, so many of them, where do you think this social consciousness comes in?
You know, as it is in the last year or two, or I would even say in the last 3 to 5 years, there's been a huge push towards sustainability, natural products that can be reused. And I think the current situation has just aggravated and exaggerated the whole thing. I mean, people want to use natural fibers. There's a huge push towards it. And rather just using the word loosely sustainable, I think people really want to know more about it. I mean, there are brands in the US, for example, there's a brand like Everlane. If you go on and Google about it, its whole USP is around sustainability. And like I told you earlier on, just as in health, even in sustainability, I think people are taking a proactive role on it rather than reactive. So it's not just enough for a brand to say, I am sustainable, but what are you really doing about it? Okay, and we're aware in the crisis that happened, loads of the luxury brands did various things from medical help to, you know, all sorts of stuff that they did helping, you know, because in many cases, brands have a reach to the public that normal people don't have. So you would have probably seen lots of social media posts by Armani and Tiffany and many other brands and what they've done. I don't want to repeat that, and there's not a pitch on that, but I think there is a huge push towards that, and it's become just greater now.
Thank you. And speaking of a brand that is synonymous with luxury, we have Sandeep. And you know, at one point where I think all of us are feeling that, you know, we want to be sustainable and we want to sort of, you know, do what we think is right for this world since we've seen it heal. At the same time, I think with Sandeep's brand, honestly, it's like when you think of luxury, you know, kind of stop there. And what I love even more is that there is such a high level of craftsmanship. There's so much sustenance of not only tangible heritage, but also intangible heritage. So how do you see this going forward, Sandeep?
I think people are going to become more conscious for sure. And I think sustainable is such a wide term and it's being misused at the moment and abused by everybody. Like luxury was a term many years ago. Luxury was an in word and everybody talked about luxury. Now luxury to one may not be luxury to the other at all. And as everybody here define luxury completely differently. The same way, sustainable is just a loose term. We all use sustainable, but fortunately our clothes are sustainable because people have been wearing them for the last 30 years. You have people who wear them 10 years later, 20 years later. So it's all about craft. And I think the only change that's going to be is that people are going to become more particular. Instead of buying 30 things, they'll be buying one thing and making sure that thing is the best thing that they can ever have. You know, people are going to become more conscious definitely about what they're going to buy. Everybody will not survive. Some of us will survive. Some of us will not survive. That's a given for sure. And we all try to we try to hold ourselves out because we almost support 7 craftsmen just to keep them alive during this whole COVID crisis. It's been a challenge, really. And one really wants to get back to work and get back to the craftsmen and get them back on their feet again, doing what they do best. And if we can do that, that'd be the ultimate thing for us.
I think that is something that, along with all the other sections of communities that one has tried to help, the craftsmen really do need all the assistance possible. So thank you for doing that. But with craft, then comes art and comes culture. And with culture, Sanjoy, you've sort of taken it to another level with all the festivals, and festivals obviously mean crowds. It means a huge sense of community. It means a huge sense of belonging. How are you sorting that out in the new world of today? And what does social consciousness, how does that come in there?
So obviously, it's a huge challenge, Tarana, and of our 33 festivals in this calendar year, barring, I think, 4 physical festivals, and we were luckily able to complete our festivals in Jaipur and in Egypt, but most of the others are now being staved off or postponed for better times. So it's a huge issue. But I just want to, for a second before answering that, go back to what I think Sandeep made a very important point, which is something that we've been really wrestling with government and everybody, saying that today, how do you define sustainable? That artisan or that person who creates the art or the craft, we know, for example, in India, where there's such a profusion, so much of diversity, what used to happen in times of drought or natural disaster is that those people in a village or a district then moved to the next village or a district to either sell their beautifully crafted bags or their sewing or their carpets, or used to sing, or the bowls or the langas and the manganias or whatever. But now with this disaster, which has stopped everything in its track, that's not possible. And people forget that if an artist or an artisan doesn't perform or doesn't sell, he or she doesn't eat. I mean, they don't have the security that we have of homes, of banks, of financial powers, etc. So there is a huge issue here. And if people like Sandeep and I'm sure Sanjay is also looking at it from his brand point of view as to how do you look then globally, but through local consumption? How do you look at artisans and the need of those artisans, and how do you support them to create a global product? Similarly, even with Sotheby's, I'm sure, whether it's Spain or Italy or India or UK, how do you sustain, that person who for 30 years has done the most beautiful corniches, and only that can be represented if you continue to give him work. So in many ways, you too are representing and supporting an industry which today otherwise will come to a standstill. Coming back to the arts, I mean, the way that we are doing it is, the obvious way, of course, it wasn't so obvious when we started, which is that we have migrated many of our products onto digital. JLF's Brave New World yesterday crossed 1 million views, etc. But we have that kind of heft to be able to convert audiences and carry them wherever we do. However, do we have the heft to be able to make it pay for itself? And I'll leave you with an example. I was in conversation And this is not necessarily true only of India. This is a conversation one has had in different parts of the world. You know, because I have long hair, I get to sit on these committees, pretty much like what I'm doing right now in terms of things. But I was asked, so why do artists need money? And shouldn't they be giving us, shouldn't they be donating money to us? And I had to turn around and say that not every artist is a Brad Pitt or a Shah Rukh Khan. Neither are they an MF Hussain or Kailash Kher. But we have 100 to 400 million people involved in arts and crafts across this country. From the Ragi in the Gurdwara to the Baul singer, from the toy maker in Varanasi to the sari maker, weaver in Maheshwar, from the Kathak dancer to the Gotipua dancer, all of these are artists and artisans of exemplary quality. You may take a few minutes or a few days or a few months to come up with a product which is unbelievable in its value. But we don't value it. We still, as people, except when you see a Louis Vuitton bag where you can't haggle, you still haggle, whether it's for a property or whether it's for a Maheshwari sari or whether it's for a Banarasi sari, because you do not value the arts and the crafts and or a potter who's thrown the most beautiful pot. You don't value that because you don't see it. How can we create advocacy to be able to build value like Sandeep and Abujani have, and of course, as has much of the fashion fraternity and the arts fraternity in India? How do you do that? I think those are some of the questions that we have to answer and be able to create the new value, be able to create the new luxury. And I'm sure if we're able to do that, every brand I think that Sanjay represents has done it at some point of time. You know, they represent that in so many different ways. So I think we need to revisit, you know, much of the design sensibilities of yore and look at building that value.
Beautifully said, Sanjoy. Beautifully said.
Thank you. I think with you as FICCI and me as CII and us banging our heads together, we will try to do all the good that we can. And you and I both know how successful that is. But moving forward, craft, of course, is the craftsmen are there in much more of a majority than artists. But, you know, I have to say that when this lockdown happened, through my Contemporary Art Foundation that I'm a part of, we very quickly put a fundraiser together for migratory workers. And all the artists that we got in touch with in contemporary art came forward, gave lots of works. We managed to raise a huge amount of money. And so therefore, I do think that artists are very generous and they must be valued. To that extent, Manjari, what is Sotheby's done? I know that you've had some very successful auctions in the last 3 months, but is there you know, a policy that you're changing to support the artists? Within Tate, for example, we've decided that we are only going to acquire works of living artists and not dead artists for this year. And I think that is an incredible shift to you know, of an international organization going across the world to say that it's something that they want to support, which is living. So what about Sotheby's? I mean, it's a very powerful organization, and how has art gone forward there? Or even within collectors, is there a social consciousness when they are buying?
Yes, there's definitely, I've definitely seen that our collectors are extremely conscientious. I think that they're asking for more information about processes and products. There's an emphasis on more attention to classical elements, about craftsmanship, about heritage, rather than just bling and appearances. I'll give you an example. We did the last live sale that Sotheby's did was on 16th March, was of modern and contemporary South Asian art. It had this work, a paper cutout by Binod Bihari Mukherjee. It was the first paper cutout that came up at auction. And our collectors, many of our collectors, some knew it, some knew that kind of work, some didn't, and others were inquiring about the process. And his process was that he created these cutouts when he was blind. And he always said that he could feel color and feel form. So he would actually take paper and cut out forms, and then his assistants would paste it. With the help of assistants, he would paste it. And he's essentially there in the Tate collection, as you know. And I think that story of how he did not give up on his drive for creation, even when these are the times that we are facing sort of as well in terms of pandemic, in terms of, so people are definitely becoming extremely conscientious. That work went on to make a world record for the artist at auction because people were simply enamored. As far as Sotheby's is concerned, we have had a great year. We, of course, most of our offices were closed down. We have done a number of charity auctions. We did a charity auction called Mayday in partnership with Google and the International Rescue Committee. All of its proceeds went to IRC. It was an experience-based auction where you could bid for a coffee with Hillary Clinton, or a studio visit with Mark Quinn, or a day with an astronaut from Apollo, or a one-on-one comedy session with Sacha Baron Cohen. And in that also I saw that, you know, one would think that to spend some time with Sacha Baron Cohen or a Hollywood star would garner more bids, but it was really things like a coffee with Hillary Clinton. People wanted to know what is going on in the world. What is a leader's stance who had previously, you know, been a presidential nominee? So I think the consumption patterns are definitely shifting. And there is a sort of an ethical point of view that people are thinking from, for sure. It's based on a value system.
Well, I do hope that it sustains going forward. And when things come back to the new normal, we don't forget that these are values that we have to go forward with. And having said that, Anastasia, there is a huge pump here in this group to say buy local and sustain local, but there are obviously an equal amount of people who want to experience the international. And so what do you have to say about to the Indians who are considering programs at Cyprus, or what you think that Cyprus can offer them?
I think that now this situation also showed that yes, we are all local, but at the same time, the world is still so small. Like, look, an accident in China brought the whole world to this situation. So we definitely see lots of increased interest because, as I mentioned in the first, when I was just addressing the audience, that now we see that more and more people really want to have the freedom to move forward anywhere. It doesn't have to be Cyprus. It can be any country in the world. And I think that now being restricted within four walls, this desire for freedom, like to have no borders, I think it's only increasing. And of course, like with Cyprus, we have really excellent opportunities for this. And we see increased interest when just, again, I don't want to talk in details during this panel because it's not the topic of this discussion, but I think that now it is luxury. You are free. You can move any country you want. And Cyprus is giving these opportunities. And again, I will be very happy to discuss further. But now I think that the topic of our discussion is slightly different. And I'm so happy to hear what you're saying, because, you know, like, obviously I am hearing this from what is happening in India. But now it resonates so much to what we hear from all over the world, that, you know, the social responsibility, I think, like what Manjari now was saying about the charity auction, when we promoted this event, I was so proud to be part of it as part of the brand, because I think now in our business, in our life, we are thinking not only on what we can take. I think more and more we start thinking what we can give. And I think this is, and again, Tarana, I'm 100% with you. I really hope that this approach and this drive to be more ethical, to be more sustainable, will stay with us. And we will not lose it the moment the world goes back to normal and we will start running again.
Well, There are some things, though, of the old world that we love and we treasure. And I am going to go right back to Sandeep now. Sandeep, along with your clothes and the garments and the whole fashion bit, which we'll speak about a bit, you actually make beautiful homes for people. And since we are talking about home and real estate, and I've been to some of your homes, they're just absolutely incredible. And they are
Thank
full
you.
of wonderful, wonderful artifacts, which you collect from all over the world and you put. So do you think this social consciousness or sustainability, I mean, first of all, let me ask, have you, now that people have spent so much time in homes, have you had more requests to do more homes?
Not at the moment, I must say, because we all been so involved in whatever we are doing. But yes, at the moment we are doing about 2-3 homes. Having said that, even the homes, one is going to re-look at the way you design your home today. Because if you're going to be standing in your home for 60 days ever again in your life, hopefully not. But you're really going to have to re-look it, redesign it, think about it afresh as to what your requirements are. So apart from very beautiful things that you need and you can look at and cherish every single day, there'll be some practical things that you will need every day on a daily basis. I mean, we in Bombay live in apartments. So fortunately, our buildings are a wonderful terrace, a big terrace. So we can walk there. Otherwise, living in a 1,000 square foot apartment, which is a luxury in Bombay, or 2,000 square foot apartment is a luxury in Bombay, and you're going to be stuck in that matchbox. It's impossible because these buildings don't have recreational areas or areas for people to hang around in. So everybody's have to rethink how they're going to live. Whether we need a balcony, every flat should have a balcony. What should we be doing for the future? We don't know as yet. So I suppose when we also designing homes in future, we will look at this pandemic, go back to this pandemic and say, if it ever happened again, how would our client cope at that time? But we will still buy beautiful old things for our clients. Still, instead of buying beautiful, fabulous art, which is of present day artists, possibly, and old artists, we still carry on doing what we did, but we look at it with a new point of view.
Deep, here on, it'll never be about if, it'll be when. Not if there will be another pandemic, but when will there be the next pandemic.
You're
I
so
think
right. You're
one
so
thing
right.
that's been taught world over. And even as we encroach onto forests and their land, their home, we are encroaching into the homes of the pangolins and the tigers and the elephants, etc. They are feeling that's how this is happening. So we need to re-examine the very notion of home and what does home mean to different people. What does home mean
absolutely.
to street family? What does home mean to you and me? Because we live in a particular kind of luxury that, as you said, most people cannot even afford.
Yeah, true. We are privileged that way. We are privileged. Yes.
I think I can add here, if you don't mind, just 1 second, because like being from real estate, we can see definite shift in how people look for home and what they're asking now. And I'm 100% sure that it is true for all the globe. People are asking for terraces, people are asking for gardens, people are asking for space to work. It's a completely different approach. From pragmatic, it comes to like, how can I live in this space if I get stuck again? And like Sanjoy, you're saying, well, I still hope that it's if, but unfortunately, most probably it is when.
True.
Well, I know that I will definitely be looking for a very strong internet connection. That's for sure. But going down to wellness, home is one thing, but to travel is another. And since we are speaking that people want to feel it's not just, the maximum that the hotel is going to offer in terms of amenities, but it's also about feeling well from within. So Shruti, what is it that the hospitality industry is doing to do that?
So we're seeing, we're seeing a lot of sort of focus on putting the mind at ease. Let's start there, right? So the first thing that the hotels have done, I would say, is to really consider all of the aspects of safety, which is now sort of like hygiene, right? Like it has to be done. When a guest comes to any one of our properties, they need to feel that this is a place where we will be, of course, pampered, but also we are safe. And we are okay to stay for a much longer period of time. So we're actually seeing people coming in and people wanting to come in for much longer periods of time because they now have the luxury of working from home, right? And they're interested in working from home. And also they're looking for this sort of reconnecting with nature. You know, in Bangalore, we do have a little bit of green space, for instance, but most people are not really able to like step into a forest or step into a farm and really experience like, you know, real nature. And we haven't been able to do that for months. So I think, you know, one of the things that people are really looking forward to is just reconnecting with nature. And that's something that we have seen a lot of interest in. Beyond that, I think the hospitality industry is really focusing on creating wellness-based experiences, of course. And I think one of the most one of the most significant ways in which that's being done is that we're seeing a lot of immunity-based packages coming out. So we, for instance, have a package which is based on healthy eating. It's based on self-care, ensuring that you get the most curated sort of treatment for your body from our spa. And it's based on really, again, like sort of rejuvenating your mind and your spirit. And so we're seeing that is sort of becoming something that people are really interested in. And that's sort of the way that we are focusing our sort of wellness elements. But more than anything, I go back to this idea of nature. I think that, we've been so cooped up, right? We've all been sort of cooped up in either apartments or homes or whatever. And we've been so isolated from, the world. And you kind of just want to feel the space, right? And I think that's what really people are now looking for. Like people are looking for places that they can go to where there's just open space and they can feel freedom, And I think that can really impact a way that a person can feel within themselves. And so I think people are looking for places like that, which are offering them that luxury of space to ensure that they are well again.
And Sanjay, a lot of the products of the brands that you represent have to do with that experience. It's not, on one hand, of course, it's the clothes that we wear, but a lot of the brands have products that you won't necessarily use for home. It just kind of makes a part of the full package. I mean, I, for one, for example, can't remember the last time I used a handbag. So tell us are you having conversations with any of the brands who are also thinking of newer ways to shift to that way forward? I mean, are there either new products coming up, a new language coming up, or for example, more environmentally friendly products that are coming out? Like, what is the way forward of brands that have to do with travel, for example, and not home?
So, if I go back to originally what Sandeep talked about luxury and said the common thread is people are looking for more of the same. I think the difference really out here is while, yes, there is a shift towards slightly more casual clothing, I think the real shift is how people are shopping. At the end of it, lots of Indians typically travel in summer. This has been one summer when everybody's out here. Just remember, every year, 26 million Indians travel overseas. Even if 2% of those people are luxury consumers, or let's say premium consumers, that's 500,000 people that are buying, and that's a great opportunity, right? But are those people going to end up going to malls? Are they going to be normal? Probably not, because safety over everything else. I think safety is being over-indexed again and again because of the media, because of what's going on and everything else. So I think we've just repivoted to ensure that apart from our regular brick and mortar retail, which is the stores, which are the temples of the brand, but we also do e-commerce and distance selling. And how does that really work? So it's been a mixture of digital catalogs, shopping via video calls. I mean, if you as a customer decide that, hey, I want to buy something new, maybe not a bag because you really don't know where you want to go out, but you just want to indulge in feeling good, right? You've really not done much. So you can call up one of the stores and they'll do a video call, a Zoom call, walk you through items. You can do home shopping. And lastly, most important, digital. I mean, everybody knows this is the age of digitize or die, right? So really you have to repivot yourself because people want to feel good. They want to look good. They want to feel good about themselves. And indulging in shopping is one of the easiest ways to do it. It's like the low hanging fruit along with wellness, right? So I really don't think many luxury brands are going to really change products completely. Maybe there's going to be a slightly more shift, let's say in a men's tailored clothing brand, is it going to be more casual or slightly more dressed down, right? But I think people are just seeking to get back to normal sooner than later, right? And brands which have a legacy and a quality and have stood the the test of time are going to keep creating real luxury for people again and again. So I think it's just repivoting how you get that product out to them rather than changing the product itself. I mean, I don't see a Bottega Veneta or Jimmy Choo or Tiffany creating special product because it's post-COVID and pre-COVID.
Yeah, I agree. And I think you touched, Sandeep, did you want to say something?
No, I agree. I agree with him totally. No, we're just refining ourselves, not redefining ourselves.
Oh, I love that. Refining ourselves. But one of the things that Sanjay, you touched on very, very potently is the fact that everything is being digitized and the ways of buying and purchasing are changing. And we, instead of feeling the luxury item or, really like the touch and feel, which is so important to it, is actually going online, and how we as consumers have to change. So Manjari, how much of that are you seeing? I mean, there's such an energy within a auction room and, people are bidding, but you've not managed to do that. How has it gone online for the art world?
I think it's been tremendous. For us personally, since lockdown, since March, Sotheby's has done 86 online sales. This is vis-a-vis 27 in the same period last year. We've sold 7,000 lots amounting to about $146 million. Everything from a George Condo painting to a Tutti Frutti bracelet to Michael Jordan's Vaughn sneakers. It's been a great cross-category run for us. In terms of, I just think even the art world, Sotheby's has launched something called the Gallery Network. Now, everybody knows that the galleries and the auction houses are two different arms of the art business. And now these two arms are coming together where Sotheby's has a buy now option on its website where the galleries are offering their works through the e-commerce platform of Sotheby's. Not that they don't have their own well-accomplished websites already, but it's about sharing audiences. So I think that our sales have gone up 370% from last year.
That's great.
In terms of online. And we're looking at new, I mean, in these times of social distancing, I mean, I always feel like I'm part of a 276-year-old brand, but we're constantly, it's like what one of our CEOs once said, we're a 300-year-old brand. We've seen governments fall. We've seen markets crash. We've seen a few world wars. But to this day, this is like my 5th year at Sotheby's. I feel like we're a 276-year-old startup, every day, like sort of adapting to sort of new things. In terms of social distancing, one of the things that has come up is not having, like you said, a live auction room. So we're now looking at studio auctions. Now, not everybody is comfortable bidding online. As you know, in auctions, a lot of bidding happens through phones. So we've come up with a studio auction, which is essentially a live auction. The auctioneer is in the room. The phone bidding is happening. The online bidding is happening. Only there is no live bidding. There is no in-room bidding. On 29th June, we are going to hold our marquee contemporary and impressionist sales. And our star auctioneer, Ollie Barker, is going to conduct it from a room in London with screens, which will live stream from auction rooms in London, Hong Kong, and New York. And there'll be phone bidders, but there is no in-room bidding. So it's just like a live streaming auction. So I think the art world is continuously adapting. We've seen Frieze, we've seen Art Basel right now. I think there are online sale rooms that are going on. I was talking to somebody at Frieze the other day, and they had a successful run. I think people were not shying away from buying works up to $300,000 online without seeing them. So people are adapting sort of fast in the art world, for sure.
Excellent. That's wonderful to hear. And just keep the prices down, please. And on the other side, also, I hope that there can be platforms like what Sanjoy said for craftsmen in the future with such high visibility, textiles, and things that we India, and I really hope that those kind of platforms come up, because it's visibility like that that actually even makes people aware of what they don't know that they have. And that takes me to my last question before I open the floor to the other questions, and that's for Sanjoy. Tell me, Sanjoy, how do we bring culture online? Just not just retail, but how do we just create that sense of culture and teach ourselves without a festival and without a crowd?
Mr. Rana, the good news is that consumption of culture online is up 47%. So that's the good news. And this is worldwide. You're seeing this at an increase. The bad news is that all of it is free, from an Andrew Lloyd Webber to our great sopranos to, The interesting fact is that in India, much of culture has always been free and therefore undervalued. You could go in to listen to the greatest performers at ridiculous ticket price unless he came, flew in from outside. So the balance here has to be found. And as you've rightly said, and Sandeep said, and I think all of you said, is there a replacement for that fifth pillar, which creates the magic? The magic of an experience, as we all know it, is when we come together and when we feel the collective energy. Of course, we can do JLF's Brave New World and blah, 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 and JLF London online and so on and so forth. But until and unless you have that magic, and that magic can only be created when people come together, and it's a sharing of emotion. It's a sharing of a particular sort of sense and feeling. And that magic translates, as Shruti will say, into a memory implant, into a memory. And that memory will then translate into you wanting to go back or talk about it, or say, I went to Cyprus, or I went to Cebu, or I went to the Antarctica, etc. So in the understanding of culture today, I think the two primary issues that we have to struggle with is value, and how do we value it, because we know we're being able to experience it, Andrew Lloyd Webber to National Theatre to National School of Drama to whatever. And the second is, given the new reality, at least for the next 18 to 24 months, where theaters are going to find it difficult to open, restaurants will find it difficult to run as it is, big concerts will not happen. How do we, human beings, get back into that interactive phase? Because my worry, and I see this across the ground, Tarana, and I'm sure you and everybody on ground is aware of the tragedy that's just occurred. Mental health is the biggest tragedy that we're seeing. It's a ticking time bomb, not just in India, but across the world. But here so more, because we know that there's stigma attached to it. We know that there's not enough resources to be able to address it. Earlier, for example, the arts used to be an expression. So even if you were anxious or had anxiety or were depressed, you were able to manage with some of these others. Zoom does not do that. Zoom distances you, and we become very comfortable, as we are right now, in our very contained 1 hour from a distance connection. This is not about people to be people.
I still want to experience real people around me.
Absolutely.
And I want the magic at whatever cost.
You want the magic, you want that, and you want that sense of to hug, to embrace, to feel, to be impassioned, to love, to lust, for everything. That's who we are as human beings. We are not robots. And what this is teaching us is to contain our feelings. And those of us who have large places, I mean, we are 3 of us at home, apart from our staff, we can live on 2 different floors in 3 different rooms. What about those who have no space, as Sandeep talked about? What when you're confined? What do you do then? This feeling of being together is horrible. You don't want to be together. You want to be out of that. So, in everything today, there's a difference. And the arts, the culture, our traditions, our value systems are all at risk at one level. But at the same time, by revisiting some of that, by reading, by looking, by understanding, by empathizing, by recognizing, I think we will perhaps come through this phase as human beings will and move ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to move on to many questions that have come in. The first question is, what changes or policies have been adopted or modified considering the post-pandemic situation in the hotel industry? Shruti, you want to take that?
Sure. Sorry, I didn't quite understand. What?
Have there been newer policies adopted or modified in the hotel industry?
Yeah, so I mean, there's been numerous health and safety guidelines. I mean, I think that the government has been, the government of India, the Ministry of Health have been putting together and releasing a number of sort of guidelines. They get revised constantly. There's been a number of industry leaders who have also put together guidelines. We have released our guidelines called the Luxury Initiative. You know, I think there is a consolidated effort to get the industry back on track. You know, like many industries, and particularly the service industries, like restaurants, like hotels, I mean, it's suffered. The last 3 months have been very difficult. It's looking like it will take a long time for the industry to come back to where it was, and therefore the main priority for the industry is really to get to a point where we can rebuild trust with our guests so that we can welcome them back. And for that reason, in terms of policies, there's been some amount of aid which has been given to the industry, but that is mostly from the states themselves. But yeah, I mean, there is sort of this, you know, there is an effort to get the industry back on track. I think we wish there was more, honestly, because we do employ 10% of the organized labor in the country. And so, you know, we do want to get our people back to their jobs. We want them to have sort of fulfillment in the work that we do. And, you know, there's a number of other, you know, vendors and people like that who also sort of supply to us, who we support. And so we do want to get the industry back on track. And therefore, there's efforts, I would say, all around to ensure that that happens.
Thanks. There's another question that's come in. Social distancing has resulted in a fall in intimacy between humans. This was addressed by Sanjoy in the last few minutes. However, aren't we also better off not being forced into toxic interactions in our circles? Oh my God, I don't even know which one of you wants to take that question.
Rana, can I just make an interview? I won't necessarily answer the question, but can I please request everybody, you know, the problem with the word social distancing, while it's very fashionable in the West, in India, we've always had social distancing between communities, between caste, between people of color. It's always existed. In New Moti Bagh today, you have a separate line for servants at their vegetable, whatever it's called, and separate line for people who go to, it's ridiculous. Can we please use the word physical distancing for whatever it's worth? You know, and I totally agree with you. When you're throwing people together into places where there is absolutely no space, 14 people to a room, 26 people to a room, you know, 500,000 people to 8,000 bathrooms. I mean, you're creating a time bomb, which is not addressed by saying lockdown. Lockdown is a luxury. I'm sorry, it's a luxury which many people without homes cannot afford. And those people with homes also can't afford.
Thank you. Thank you, Sanjoy.
I totally do agree with Sanjoy. Also completely agree that you know, in India, we have our own rules. We don't follow any discipline of the West, and social distancing, I mean, it goes to pot when 20 people are living in a room, which is a reality in Bombay. It's a complete reality all over India and most places of India, whether it's Delhi, Bombay, all the metros.
Believe it or not, it's a reality in New York too, which is why COVID went where it went in New York.
Absolutely.
And
I mean, somebody raised
I really
a question here,
do want to say what
Sandeep.
Sanjoy is saying about social distancing. I mean, what the US is experiencing in terms of the George Floyd protests, I mean, you know,
It's crazy.
yes, physical distancing is what it is.
Okay, on that note, Manjari, there's a question in that's come for you. Sourcing art requires physical verification. How do you see this evolving?
You know, it helps when you're part of a global brand. We have offices in 40 locations, and 80% of our offices have opened. So we've been using that to our advantage, where and we source art from across the world. My colleagues in London are already going to work. So we're sort of looking at the cycle of what is opening across the world, and then those specialists are going and seeing the art on our behalf. And anyway, in terms of our business, we always give estimates based on images, and then we confirm the estimates when we are able to examine them under our own apparatus. So I think that this is going to be the norm going forward. We're keeping a close watch on how the world opens up. And as soon as there is a window, we take advantage of that window. And having colleagues on ground in different parts of the world helps.
Thanks,
so I had a quick question for Sanjay. Sanjay, in terms of luxury consumption of product, at least during the financial crisis, you know, we had the Chinese that came in and did a lot of buying and, you know, brought that back. During, you know, post-COVID or during COVID, I think we're in COVID times. I don't think there's anything called post-COVID, but during COVID times, how do you see the luxury consumption returning? Where do you see it coming from, or how do you see it returning? And I'll get specific into maybe, you know, how do you think it'll happen for retail outlets and malls and other locations like that?
So Samir, it's too early to say right now. We did open malls a few days ago in Delhi and a week ago in some other cities. Honestly, since we are really in the thick of the pandemic, there is, as I said right at the beginning, I think safety is being over-indexed again and again, right? Fairly optimistic about the situation because as I told you earlier, no one really can travel. Indians are already among the top luxury spenders. If you count the VAT tax refunds, let's say if you take Global Blue, Indians feature between number 3 or number 4 in UK every year. In France, we've already broken the top 10. So there's significant amount of luxury consumption that takes place by Indian consumers overseas. And a lot of that will translate back to India, right? How much of that? Difficult to say. I think it's a question of how the pandemic really plays out. If you see, London opened up its stores yesterday. On the first day of sales, of high street sales, most stores were trending at about 30% below the previous year, which is fantastic on day one. But on the contrary, the outlets went berserk. I've seen pictures of Bicester Village with 2 hours queues to enter. IKEA, which opened last week, had a 4-hour queue to enter. So it's a mixed bag. I think once people start feeling safe, then they've changed their mindset and said, we want to live for today. We want to consume and live for today, because who knows what the future is going to live for us, right? Who knows what the future? So whenever something is available, they're willing to spend it even at a higher price today, then wait out. But as I said again today, you know, at least in Delhi, in the last 4 days, the press has just announced Delhi's going to go through 550,000 cases. We need X number of beds, etc., etc. I think it's mindsets which are playing up on people. So if the mindset gets subdued and, you know, people feel safe, I believe luxury will bounce back sooner than later. We probably will not see the revenge spending that everybody read about in China, where Hermès sold for 2.9 million or 2.7 million in one day. But I see business bouncing back sooner than we expect. I'm pretty optimistic about it. You know, but it'll be a new way of selling, right? So there will be social distancing, there'll be private appointments, virtual appointments. So you won't have people just browsing to shop. So you'll have serious shoppers. Even on Saturday morning when Emporio opened, whoever came, went in, shopped, exited. There was no one browsing around with a bunch of girlfriends over coffee and stuff like that. Went in, shopped, and left. And I think that will continue. So you'll have less traffic, but larger ATVs, average transaction values, larger UPTs, unit purchase transactions. So you'll see larger matrices like that. So shopping will change.
Actually, if you don't mind, if I could also add, I think on the service side, it's a very similar trend. I think in the service side, you're seeing actually, like, because, you know, the hotel and all we're allowed to open up in India. We're already seeing sort of the budget holidays, sort of in the middle segment, a lot of demand, actually a surprising amount of demand. I think luxury will take some time to recover, definitely. And I think companies, I see them adapting to it quite a lot and sort of making themselves far more accessible to a larger market. But I think exactly what Sanjay was saying, there's very serious shoppers who are out there looking right now. And they're saying that, okay, when we are ready, either this month or next month, but in the near future, we will be visiting. And I think, so I think that shopping, exactly what you're saying, like that shopping, sort of that casual shopping, that kind of browsing around, those calls we're not getting much of. And I don't think much of the luxury players are getting. I think we're seeing very serious people who are looking to shop right now.
But to add to that, Shruti, in the travel business, for example, no one's traveling overseas again. So the moment there is accessibility, I'm sure everybody on this panel and most people we know would want to find a way of going safely to anywhere but a car drive, because you really are worried about a second wave, right? And you'd be willing to pay, let's say I was willing to pay $20,000 earlier for Wildflower Hall. I'm happy to pay $40,000 today, right? I'm just inventing a number, right? Because you really want to get out and you want to live for today, right?
Absolutely. And I think it goes back to sort of what you're looking for. I think exactly what you're saying. Like people are looking for what they want in luxury, and luxury players are sort of positioned to curate experiences, right? So if one person wants consistency and one person wants something new and something fresh, like luxury players are the people that do that. They're, we don't provide cookie cutter experiences for everybody. And so I think that, that ability to sort of personalize makes it far easier and far more valuable for people who just want to get out and go and have that sort of freshness outside of their homes, their bubbles that they've been stuck in for the last 3 months.
I was reading an article which said Indians are considering Maldives as the highest place that they want to travel to post-COVID for vacation. Now, Maldives is pretty much an expensive place. So it just shows you the mindset of how people are thinking. I think that's really important.
Sanjay, Tarana and Shruti, in fact, we've got inquiries from, and I don't want to name the islands, where have said, please do a festival for us on this island. We will have 100 people at X ridiculous amount of dollars per person at this point of time, and we will charter the flights to get you there, for example. But to answer Sanjay's question, Sanjay, somebody like me, for example, I used to stay 15 or 20 days outside of India every month, and all my shopping, if I needed to do anything, was outside. Today, if one was to shop luxury, as you said, I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start outside of Khan Market. I would never go to a mall because anyway, they frighten me. Malls have always terrified me. So, I don't know how to negotiate.
Get over it, Sanjay.
Can't. I just, somebody said, go to Emporium, my heart only stopped. But,
it's change.
I think we need Sanjay to send you a personal shopper then. You can't say this.
with pleasure.
Yeah. I love it.
Start with Khan Market.
Khan Market is cool. I know how to negotiate it.
Okay, and one question that's coming in again and again is weddings, lehengas, everything that goes with it. Mr. Khosla?
The weddings are going to become, I think they're going to become smaller for a little while. At least I think they should. Instead of doing those 1,000 people weddings, should go out of fashion for a bit at least, please. And let be more refined. Let be about 100 and 200. Let be a more personal experience. Weddings are going to exist. We are going to carry on doing our work that we do. And I don't agree with Sanjay that if we can buy everything online, Abu Jani Sindhi Posta, you have to experience it to buy it. If you're buying that end of luxury, you have to touch and feel it and understand it to buy it. Before you invest that money, it's an investment for life. It's not just a garment that you're picking up, and you're not picking up just another white shirt, which you wear and dispose of a couple of years later. So, but there are, I must say, on the positive side, like everybody else is saying, we have had queries in the stores. Lots of calls are coming in, and people want to come with appointments. That's what we will do. We'll take appointments at, maybe of 2 people at a time in a big store, and not more than that in a day, or maybe 3 in a day. That's what we have to do.
So Sandeep, let me rephrase that. An existing customer of yours would know what your product is, right?
Yes,
so if it's a new customer or they're doing a make to measure, that's different. You're absolutely right. But an existing customer, if you've been an existing customer of Abu Jani Sandeep Khosla, you would say, hey, let me just get something more. But a lot of your stuff is also made to measure, which is slightly different.
That's true. That's exactly right.
Tarana, I just had a quick question from Manjari as well. I just wanted to understand the space around consumption of public art and how that will get affected. I just think that's something, you know, we overlook, and it fits in with what Sanjoy has, you know, does in terms of experiencing culture. What happens to the consumption of public art?
I don't see it to be a problem. Look at Washington, look at Philadelphia, look at Black Lives Matter. I mean, you have the biggest installation, as Manjari talked about yesterday. And if you're looking around the world, one of the threat that I see is in democracy, where you're toppling, you know, whether you want to topple Churchill statue or Colton statue or a Confederate statue. What you're doing is you're destroying history. You're destroying place markers for the evils that have abounded in the world. It is evils that abound in the world, like Leopold II, that remind you what you shouldn't do, not for us, not for today, but for tomorrow and generation after generation. That is where a public art needs protection. And public art can and does and always will bring about enormous change, as we've seen in Washington on the way to the White House.
Absolutely, absolutely. It contributes to a community's identity. It fosters community pride. It has a sense of belonging. And now more than ever, these things are of great importance.
Including buildings that you all have. I mean, you know, every piece of construction or public construction or even private construction, they denote a time and place. Punjabi Baroque architecture was a time and place.
Yeah.
In New York, we call it Mafia Baroque.
You know, the White Houses that are across the world were a time and place. So, you know, we look at things differently when we're creating them. Even as reality people, you all need to look at that. What is it that you're representing? And who are you representing it for?
Yep, absolutely. Those are the
things that taken Gone with the Wind out, Manjari, HBO has taken. And what's the image that they've used? They've used the house, right? They've used the plantation house as an example of that period. I mean, what an emotive visual. And that's where you guys step in.
Yep.
Yeah, so on that note, I'd like to ask a question also to Manjari. With this spectacular increase in consumption of art, you've given great statistics about the amount of art that you've sold this year. Obviously, all this art has to go into homes. So we are hoping there'll be a correlation between people buying more beautiful homes for all that beautiful art. Are these new customers, or you have, you know?
Absolutely. Actually,
where's the destination for all this art?
Well, let me just begin by saying, Sabah, I will live like Sandeep was talking about. I live in an apartment in a shoebox in New York. And I never thought I'll say this, but I can't wait to move to a suburb. So I'm going to ask my friends in SIR for help next.
That's what I wanted to hear.
Yes. But I think coming to your question about consumption, just if you can just repeat the last part of your question.
No, I said that, you know, you have a spectacular year of sale, great volumes, great stats, great numbers of sale online, which is absolutely amazing. People have transitioned to buying very expensive art online, but all this art has a physical destination, which has to be home. So, you know, we are just hoping all this translates also into beautiful homes. What is your perspective on all, you know?
Wait, Sandeep is just showing you a flash of his beautiful home.
Yes.
Oh yeah, I think everything you make is gorgeous.
And Sandeep has done my office space as well, which is all glass here. Sandeep, it's not working for me anymore. As an office space. Yeah.
And that's where I think we are talking about the new things that will change, and that Sandeep was saying. We've had an incredible session, everyone, and I must bring it now to an end. We've had lots of questions that came in, but I'm sure the Sotheby's team will either direct it to you and you will have them answered. Thank you so much, all the panelists. You've been brilliant, and this has been such an incredible conversation. Over to you, Samir.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to take this moment to thank Tarana for moderating this session and allowing me to hide behind the covers. And I wanted to thank each of you panelists, distinguished in your own right, for joining us today and having an interactive conversation. I just wanted to, again, reintroduce my colleague Sabha. I think we'll just have a few words to say to wrap up the session. And of course, everybody who's attended, all the panelists, as well as all the attendees. Thank you so much.
I just want to say the quality of discussion was wonderful. It was very diverse, very insightful, lots of new views, you know, from spectacular online sales of art to hybrid models of retail in the future to an island in the Mediterranean that's waiting for us to be discovered, where culture can be taken, perhaps on chartered flights or even otherwise, or even online, to health and wellness. I mean, there is a world out there which we will look forward to now. We really are very thankful for the insights you've given. I think we should be optimistic. We should believe in the medical profession. We should admire the frontline workers out there, and we should keep our faith to go back to the time when we shall meet again. The great monarch, Queen Elizabeth, has announced, until we meet again. And she has lived a century. She has the faith. Let's keep the faith. Goodbye.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tarana.
Thank you all.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Sotheby's,
Sandeep,
and thank you,
Sanjay.
panelists.
Thank you, SR.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shruti.
Bye.
Manjari.
Sanjay, wonderful
Bye.
connecting with you.
Super to see you. Keep
Thank
in
you.
touch. Cheers.
Thanks a
Thank
lot.
you.